Good evening, guys, and welcome to Clairvoyance, the Heroes of the Storm interview series where we sit down with players and personalities within the Heroes of the Storm community. I'm your host, Solid Jake, joined by my beautiful co-host, Mr. Sia Steve.
How you doing, man? It's good to be back after the wonderful, delicious break that we had.
Delicious.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Thanksgiving was a thing.
Yeah, lots of turkey and lots of goodness. Much mashed potatoes.
Much mashed potatoes.
So it's good to be here. Good to be here with you. Obviously, we have our guest today, Dunktrain. We'll talk to him in a second. Hi, Dunk. And I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have a good time. So, I don't. Do we need to continue? We've had Dunk on the show
let's
before.
Go right to.
So.
No, well, let's have Dunk give his introduction. He's got a new. He's got a new tag next to him. Well, I guess it's not here on the graphic. But you're now Cloud9 Dunktrain. But anyone that doesn't know you as Cloud9 Dunktrain or who you are in general, why don't you just give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, so I'm Dunktrain. You can find me at twitch.tv/Dunktrain. I'm longtime Heroes of the Storm streamer, player, longtime veteran of the MOBA genre, in addition to a variety of other games. I moved over to Heroes of the Storm when it started. Been playing it ever since. Love the game. And yeah. That's an intro. What more do you want, boys?
Awesome. So, Dunk, you played with a lot of different groups. And we're going to go right into the beefiness, apparently, because we're going to jump right on into this. Matt, ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, yeah.
He's ready. So, at BlizzCon, you played under the banner of Team Liquid. And now,
Correct.
You are under the banner of Cloud9 Maelstrom.
Yep.
So, first and foremost, let's start with Cloud9. Let's start with the happiness. You've got a new squad. How did the squad become a thing?
Basically, we found, like, these 5 people are super chill and the personalities all mesh. So, like, when we just happened to play with each other before we were on teams and stuff, actually competitively, like, we'd played with each other and, like, everyone meshed really well. So it just seemed like a perfect fit. And then when it just so happened that there would be a sponsor for the team and stuff, that just made it even better.
Cool. So, I mean, I know that obviously the C9 guys before you came in had league experience. I believe you did as well. Do you think, like, just the fact that you've all played a similar game and you all kind of played at a very high level, did that help the team cohesion at all, or did it literally just click right from the beginning so it didn't even matter?
Yeah, actually, having everyone come from the same game before, everyone being a really high level League of Legends player, makes it so all your instincts match, all your game senses match. So even though you have to adjust them to heroes, a lot of the senses and the way you play the game, they translate. So your fundamentals are going to be so much better if you're coming from a MOBA genre background. And I think that's going to become very apparent as the scene develops.
Cool.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So has that translated over into scrims? I mean, obviously we can talk about solo queue and all that good stuff, and you guys are high level players. You're probably going to stomp out solo queue. But how have scrims been for you? Has it really taken a good stand, or are you still kind of rocky? We're going to see you soon. What should we expect?
Our debut tournament tomorrow is Kings of the Storm, so that'll be the first time this 5-stack will be playing in a broadcast real event. And judging on our scrim performances, you guys are in for a very good show, I would say. I mean,
I was privy to a replay between you guys and SMG, and I'm excited. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm very excited to finally see you guys in a live match.
Okay. I wonder what replay it was, because we do some dumb shit in
it
scrims sometimes.
It was a few weeks ago.
Okay.
No, it was a good game. I've seen it too. It was a very solid game from both teams. So I'm looking forward to you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm really excited.
We all are. Matt, why don't you bring up the other half of the whole team swap thing?
Okay, so clearly we know that you came from Team Liquid, and there was obviously whatever happened. You guys showed up, you played pretty well at BlizzCon. Obviously, didn't work out. Was the performance at BlizzCon a determining factor in the team splitting, or just you splitting away? Was it just you splitting away? I'm gonna ask like 10 different questions. So we'll start with: was it just your decision to split away from the team, or was the team already kind of devolving as it was?
Basically, biceps will follow me no matter what decision I made. So when I'm like, oh God, that's a complex question. But basically, I made the decision that I did not want to be on that team anymore. And when I made that decision, caffeine and biceps came to the same conclusion.
Okay. So was, and to kind of just piggyback on that, was the performance at BlizzCon an issue, or was it already something kind of in the making where it just didn't, like something just wasn't clicking? Or...
The performance at BlizzCon definitely catalyzed the departure, which otherwise might have taken a little while longer. But there were absolutely some things that were not optimal, and I was thinking about before moving into the BlizzCon tournament.
Okay. Well, I don't want to dive any
No,
deeper.
no, that's fine. I mean, yeah.
Thank you for that. So there you go. People that have been asking, that's your update. But getting back into the actual game now. So we talked about scrims a little bit. How have you guys dealt with the new changes into the game? I mean, we've seen a huge patch, and we can go over that relatively in depth. This isn't like a super meta show, but
Yeah.
what are the biggest things that you've seen change in the game, and how has your team reacted to them?
The biggest things are probably that Nova is no longer a hero, which is really huge because it pretty dramatically changes the landscape of the way the game can be played when you don't actually have a burst mage in the game anymore, outside of Falstad, kind of. So that's interesting. Additionally, who else got hit pretty hard? Lily is pretty dope now. There was some really fun stuff we did with Lily and scrims.
How do you feel about Muradin?
Muradin...
Hold on, wait. I'll preface this. Muradin's not actually going to be in either of the two NA events this weekend.
He's banned?
So, yeah, he's banned.
I think
He's
that's a
currently
mistake.
bugged.
Because of the
currently
the
bugged.
D? The re...
Well, his regen
rewind?
is so far gone right now that it's just not
Yeah.
really okay.
We actually think that where the regen is at right now, like his default HP regen, like that makes him actually a character. And like he's balanced right now in his current state.
Wow. Okay.
Like that.
So you know Stone Form, the massive heal? You know you can rewind that, right?
But you cannot anymore, it got hotfixed.
Oh, they hotfixed it. Okay. Okay.
Supposedly. Unless Zuna doesn't know how to press D and then 1 and then D again, it got hotfixed.
Okay.
So
Okay. That was the thing too. That was
Yeah.
I played a few games with Muradin. I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, he's a beast right now. This is ridiculous. But bugs are bugs.
yeah. With rewinded Stoneform, he's like ridiculously unkillable, so
Yeah,
not
it's-
balanced. But like without that, we think he's almost like in a good place with the broken HP regen of 20 a second or whatever.
So yeah, before we bounce around a little bit more, what do you think helps Lily out the most? You mentioned Lily. You mentioned she's fun and kind of a thing, but is it more just like the healing increase that she has, like the scaling late game, or is it the heroic change? Like what makes the bigger difference?
There's no burst mage in the game anymore, so sustain healing could in theory be a thing given certain team compositions and the way the draft can go. Like with Tastar's damage nerfed, you're seeing a lot less overall damage output with Nova and Tastar. Like Nova's out of the game, Tastar's nerfed damage wise, so if you're seeing noticeably reduced damage output by all the heroes, then suddenly sustained healing gets better. And she also saw like a 45% healing buff this patch, so
Mhm.
it's possible you could actually see her played in certain compositions.
Interesting.
Cool.
And obviously, we're not going to ask you to divulge any of your strats because that's obviously
Right.
your thing. We want you to do your thing and surprise us, especially Jake. He'll be casting the event. So
yeah, I don't want to
he
know
doesn't
any
want anything.
secret strats.
Uh,
I want to be hyped.
So let's obviously the biggest thing that happened this patch, Jaina, new hero added. First impression of her, and then I'll ask a follow-up question. So what do you think of her? Is she very okay? Is she too strong? Is she not strong?
How much have you played of her?
I've played a significant amount of Jaina. I've probably played 25 games. I'm like level 7 on her or something.
Nice.
And scrims don't give you XP either. Customs don't, so additional games other than level 7. I come from a background in League of Legends where I played a lot of mages. I was like AP mid player. I loved playing mages. So that's really the frame of reference I came from. That's why the Nova that was good last patch felt so familiar to me. It really felt like a high impact burst mage. You know, you have downsides with that lack of mobility and such. I feel like Jaina is fun and her talents are really interesting, but she's not that good right now because in their allocation of stats, they gave way too much emphasis on how relevant her slow was, her slow passive, which is honestly not that relevant. And I think that caused them to essentially underestimate how much other stuff she needed, like her damage and such. Also, her Blizzard right now is bugged on the damage screen if you press tab,
Yeah.
so don't let that factor into their calculations. I'm taking that into account. I still think she's a little undertuned, and I think part of that is overestimation of how important the chill is and putting too many of the cool things for her kit into her talents, because when you put all of the cool stuff that she can do into her talents and you have to pick between them, then suddenly like she's not as powerful because she has to give up so much to get any of the actual things she needs.
Okay. Man, there's a lot of content there that I can spiral off of. So let's address talents, and then we'll come back to Jaina again probably. So what you just said is something that we've kind of, you and I personally have discussed many times, but the entire community has as well. How talents should be approached is kind of a up in the air thing for a lot of people. Some people say it should be like hot shots, or what is it, armor piercing rounds now. Um,
Yeah.
in that it should completely change. So the certain ones that you pick should completely change the way a character plays, but other people say it should only mildly enhance things. So is there a fine line that needs to be walked there, or is it okay for some heroes to literally be completely changed and other ones only get upgraded? What's your idea of a perfect system for talents?
That's actually a really interesting question. I imagine that both systems could work even inside the same game, as long as you understand that that's happening. The thing is, a lot of the heroes have plenty of power in their base kit, and then you pick their talents and they just get better. Like they're just augmenting talents, they're not fundamentally changing talents. And Jaina has like a lot of talents that fundamentally change what she can do, that without which she's like not a hero. For example, at level 7, um, it's called Ice Lance, I believe, in reference to the mage ability of the same name in World of Warcraft, where when you land a Frostbolt, reduces the cooldown of your next Frostbolt by 2 seconds
Yep.
on a chilled target. So that ability is 100% a must pick, because without it, she's just not a hero. That ability single-handedly changes from a mage with a 4-second cooldown, a 15-second cooldown, and like a 12-second cooldown to a mage who can actually chain cast abilities and be relevant. So, like, having something that changes you that fundamentally on the talent tier is good if it actually changes the way you play the game and is a choice, but you just have to pick it, and that means that you don't get a level 7 talent. You pick a level 7 talent to give you what should be part of the default ability in the kit, and that's a problem.
Hmm. It's interesting. I'm actually just really interested by the fact that you always get Ice Lance at level 7. It's very good, but Frostbitten helps her damage a lot as well. It affects all of her abilities, and you think Ice Lance is just too valuable compared to Frostbitten?
Frostlance is Garbo. It's literally a 10% damage dealt increase on chilled targets. Like,
15%, yeah, but
okay, it's 15% on top of your flat, which is a 10% increase to your actual damage dealt once you factor in the default crit. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay.
So it's a less marginal utility than like a 15% increase from the base 100%. Now,
You're right. Actually.
also, Ice Lance is really important for chaining your slows. It synergizes incredibly well with Icy Veins, and really just the difference between having like 4-second cooldown and a 2-second
You're
cooldown
right.
on your Frostbolt is the difference between like being an actual hero and not, like 100% serious.
Now, a lot of Jaina players. I've been playing a ton of Jaina, and I've been talking to a lot of Jaina players. A lot of Jaina players will get Frost Armor if they see a Nova, or if they see it's like Nova, Chen, and Zeratul. I think are the three. That's the rule. Do you go the same way?
Absolutely not.
Never. So it's
like-
it's Ice
yeah.
Lance 100% of the way.
Yeah, you might as well AFK if you're not picking Ice Lance.
Wow.
Like, honestly.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
you're gonna die, like Frost Armor is not going to save you from dying most of the time unless you get really lucky with it blocking like Chen every time it Qs for combination attack. But like without Ice Lance, your damage is and like actual effectiveness in team fights is so bad.
Okay. So I'm gonna shift a little bit into a more meta discussion here, and it goes back to hero design.
Mhm.
So it links with talents as well. So
Yeah.
what do you think Jaina was designed to be when she came in? Was it, like, in your opinion, is it that she's purely a damage dealing caster, or do you think that Blizzard kind of looked at her and said, you know what? We can actually toe the line here. We can make her be kind of that off-roll support or that off-roll damage, or even possibly a primary damage dealer if you spec fully into it. Is that a good design choice? And did they follow up with it well, if that's what you think, or did they just do something kind of weird and sort of wrong with her, and then you just don't like it?
I actually like the concept of the design a lot. Like to have the mage, like the Frost Mage, you would expect it to not deal as much damage as a mage without CC. Obviously, that's the case.
Mhm.
I think
Unless you played
that-
Warlords. Cough.
okay, barring WoW PvP imbalances,
Go ahead.
yeah. So I think the concept can work of having the mage has a lot of controlling elements, but Jaina just doesn't have those controlling elements. Like they hedged a lot on her power level and damage because they felt like the chill was a controlling element, and it's just not. The effectiveness of slows in this game is so negligible given the number of heroes that have gap closers or burst or just don't care about the slows. I mean, the slows matter sometimes, but it's just a simple matter of over allocating into how much you estimate that slow to be worth. But I think the concept of having a hero that's, it's a frost mage, like maybe you build more frosty, you get more CC, or you build more damage and like ignore your CC elements. I think that's fine. I think it's cool to have a hero that can go in either direction. I think it adds a lot of versatility to draft phases and could be something that's really cool for the game moving forward because you don't see stuff like that in a lot of other MOBAs where you can have heroes kind of shift roles. I just think she's not quite in the right place at the moment.
Okay.
What would help her more, burst or like maybe even range? You think if she had slightly less cooldowns and slightly more range default, or slightly more damage with her exact range now, what would be better?
They change the heroes a lot depending on those two. It's like something that people really don't appreciate is how important range is, and right now Jaina's really lacking on range.
Yeah.
She really has to get up close to be relevant.
You can spec into it, which is like 100% on Blizzard, and you can get an extra 30% on Frostbolt, which is nice, but then you're sacrificing a ton of damage now.
Yeah.
But if you could get one defaulted, maybe lesser than that.
I think if you give her extra range, it changes the hero fundamentally a lot. If you want her to be the mage that has to get into shorter ranges to do relevant damage, and she's really controlling, and like if you have multiple melee, you're going to get punished, that kind of thing, then you want to keep her designed such that her ranges are not that long. So Blizzard and Cone of Cold being really short range are very meaningful downsides, and it's okay to have those downsides if it makes the hero interesting and powerful in other ways and gives her a meaningful weakness. So I would rather see her damage and crowd control improved than her ranges, just to keep that. It's really scary to be in combat as Jaina, but like if you're not on the edge of death as Jaina, as far as your positioning, if you're not within 1 micrometer of where you would have to stand, and like if you did stand there you die, if you're not there you're not getting optimal output. So like it's really cool to have that, and I would rather them keep that than just make her a super safe caster like Tassadar, and then you just derp and press Blizzard in team fights and like cool story, bro. So like I would much rather keep like that edge of your seat, like just in range of doing damage. That's way more fun than just giving her tons of range and then leaving her as is other than that.
Okay. Do you have any other Jaina things, Jake, that you want to go through?
Yeah, just before we go, Snowman, or I guess Water Elemental, or Ring of Frost.
I keep going back and forth on these to the extent that I've picked both of them multiple times and I honestly can't decide which one is better.
That's great. That's a good problem to have. That's a really good problem to have.
It's a fantastic problem to have. I have had issues with Ring of Frost. It seems like it doesn't hit sometimes when it should, and it feels a little awkward.
Yeah.
So I don't
you're
know
not
if
alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, okay.
It's like,
I don't know if there's like a
There's an
problem
arm time.
there.
There's an arm time,
No,
but
yeah.
it'll hit in the ring, like the
Mhm.
actual outer ring on the arm time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been like, wait, do they have relentless? And it's like, no, it did nothing. It didn't even damage
Yeah.
them. So it
Yeah.
seems buggy. It really does.
Yeah,
But
I'm not sure if it's buggy or just like the shape of a donut is so hard to comprehend as far as like actually. No, I'm serious because like your brain is so used to
Well,
thinking in circles and stuff for these
yeah.
that like I could see how that would be an issue, but it feels maybe a little buggy, so like that kind of
Okay.
makes me not like it as much.
But
And the water elemental is so powerful.
disregarding that, if it worked
Yeah.
as you'd
Yeah.
expect it to,
Yeah,
you think they're both still really good.
yeah, they're really powerful, really, really powerful, game-changing ultimate abilities, which I like.
And level 20,
So-
you like the snowman casting your spells. You get any cool plays with that? Or do you
Mm,
go with Blink?
I think the snowman casting your spells is going to have to get changed
You think it's too good?
in its current iteration. I think it's too good.
Yeah.
Like the damage output you get is absolutely bananas. I think actually it's pretty interesting because you should take Bolt almost every time it's available. Bolt or Resurgence, like that's just the way the game is. The leveled up ultimates are almost all not tuned properly relative to those abilities, and the power level the Frost Elemental level 2 is high enough that you actually have to think about it over Bolt of the Storm. So I actually really like that. You
That's
have
great,
a
though.
choice
Yeah,
you
that's
made there.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you compare that to the level 20 ult of the Ring of Frost ult is garbage.
You would never
level
get it.
20
Yeah,
upgrade.
it's
it's trash. So like, it's really interesting to see that. Like if you go Ring of Frost, you have to pick Bolt because you don't have a level 20
Yep.
upgrade to your ultimate, basically. So maybe it's better to pick Ring of Frost then because you can't trick yourself into picking Snowman level 2 and giving up Bolt.
No, I want
can
to see
always Bolt
Super
Ring
Sick
of Frost,
Snowman
too.
plays, man. It's so
Bolt
fun.
Ring of Frost would be really
Yeah.
cool. Like Bolt Ring of Frost with Bolt like Twilight Dream.
It is cool. That is cool.
That'd be intense.
When you
all right,
cast
so
the level
let's
20 water elemental
go.
though and just kill everyone,
yeah,
that's
It's so
awesome.
hype.
pretty
That's
awesome.
the best feeling.
especially
is.
like you have icy flows going. You're just like, all right,
Yeah.
it's go time, and
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
throwing.
Enjoy these
it's like,
20 frost
it's
bolts.
just disgusting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. All right, so last, I guess I think Jake's done.
I'm good on Jaina, I'm
tapping
good,
this.
I'm good.
Okay. So last question on Jaina. Did they do a good enough job with her for you personally? Because I know you're a WoW guy. That it felt like you were playing Jaina. Was that like a thing for you, or was it just like generic Ice Mage?
Actually, it doesn't really feel like a generic ice mage.
Okay.
If I were gonna put a generic ice mage in, they would 100% need to have like Frost Nova, for sure.
I agree.
And I think not having Frost Nova makes you not a generic ice mage. I don't know if they really captured Jaina specific lore on the Frost Mage aspect. Like I think she's a cool version of a Frost Mage, but she doesn't like strike me as I don't know what lore Jaina specifically had. Like you never played with her in WoW, and like in Warcraft 3, the Frost Mages were like kind of generic, Blizzard Water Elemental. That's cool, but like. So I mean, she captures that, but it doesn't really feel like a generic Frost Mage. I would expect to see Frost Nova for sure.
I'm just glad they didn't add raid boss Jaina and teleport random people across the world.
Oh God.
Hype. Okay, so that's that. We're gonna leave Jaina alone for a little bit. There was a recent AMA. I don't know if you tuned into that on Reddit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was a whole lot of stuff in there. So I'll give you the open floor. If there's anything like immediately pressing that you want to talk about, we can talk about it. If not, I have some things we can talk about. So give you like 2 seconds to think of something. If there's anything that like jumped out at you that you want to talk about.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, fine.
Man.
First one, Resurgence. Let's go. So Resurgence
Yeah.
came up, and people were like, "Hey, what's the deal with this? Can we see it removed? Can we see it changed a lot?" Like, and this is a topic that the entire competitive community has
Months
discussed
now.
at length.
Months
Yeah,
now.
at length. And they said, you know what? Okay, listen, we're reducing it to 180 seconds. This is our temporary fix, and they even in the AMA flat out said we're considering removing it, and we're testing how that feels in the game right now. So, I mean that might be on the horizon. That's a pretty cool thing. But what's your thoughts on that directly? And it doesn't have to be long. We've talked about this again forever. So,
Yeah.
thoughts on Resurgence and how it's getting changed?
I pretty much think that everyone falls into one of two camps: either remove it from the game or increase the cooldown to some exorbitant amount. And I would rather see it removed from the game, honestly. The fewer really generic things that are in the game, the better, in my opinion. And like, I just don't really like Resurgence. I don't think it adds to the game in any way. I think there are more interesting things you could do if you want to have something like Resurgence, like have the person revive where they died, akin to Guardian Angel or Ankh, or Aegis, I mean, from Dota. Ankh's were a Warcraft 3 item, and reviving in position would be an interesting mechanic for that, and then you could tool around with that, and that would be cool, but I don't like Resurgence as is. I think it's really bad for the game's health.
Now, obviously, Diablo has souls, and that'll always exist, and that's not going to go away. And in theory,
Yeah.
they could give Reincarnate to Thrall or something like that if they wanted to. Are you cool with that kind of stuff existing and being something special? Because then, I mean, you have the second health bars with Panda Pals, and you have the second health bar with Tychus.
Yeah.
And effectively, that creates another kind of second health bar hero. Do you think that's kind of the right way to go?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely okay with it being on a per character basis, especially with stuff like Diablo where there's specific
Yeah, very specific mechanic.
criteria you have to meet in order to get the mechanic. Like that's way better designed than
Yeah.
Resurgence. Despite Diablo's issues, I think the specific Resurgence for him that's got like a cool effect on it, like criteria, that kind of thing is cool. Genetic Resurgence is not.
So, you know, the thing about Resurgence that a lot of people don't like is you can just dive and essentially it extends games too. From a spectator standpoint, it's not interesting. It extends games. Well, something that they just did in the game, it's kind of a shadow patch, is they increased the core health by a pretty large amount.
Yup.
You pair the core health with Resurgence, and we have 40-minute games suddenly. So first off, what's your thoughts on the new core health?
So, to clarify, the core health is not dramatically increased after 20 minutes.
Okay.
If you look at the numbers, the core health is similar after 20 minutes, but it really, really makes the game feel weird. There are a lot of factors in the game that are not really obvious, that when taken together come to mean that a team that is very far ahead, like level 16 to level 13 type stuff, you can't actually end the game. You just have to keep playing until both teams are like level 20 and 18 before you can end the game. And I think that's a mistake. Because right now, level-wise, characters are reaching end game. Let's call relative to, you know, an analogous game like Dota or League of Legends, they reach end game and then the game ends. Can end at least. You have the potential to end. So 35 minutes into a League game, 35 minutes into a Dota game, you're at end game, your characters are at level 13 to 17, and you can end the game in one push. In Heroes, you reach end game, let's say level 16-ish, at 14, 15 minutes, you cannot end the game because you cannot kill the core, and if you're ahead, you're actually punished because the enemy's death timers are dramatically lower than yours. So despite having this game that in theory you think, these should be fast, fun, easy to end games, with the changes to the core, you literally cannot do that, especially when coupled with the reduced death timers for enemies lower level than you. So I actually don't think Resurgence factors into that longer game argument relative to the change in the core.
That's a good point.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So I'm going to bring back something that nobody ever wants to talk about because it was a bad time in Heroes Darkness. There was a point where the underdog bonus was a little ridiculous, and it was basically guaranteeing that at any point you could find yourself in a 20v20 game, because if you were down like 4 levels, you killed one person and you suddenly gained a level. Does this feel kind of the same as that in some regards, where no matter what, you're almost always hitting endgame and Sergeant Hammer becomes relevant again? Or is this something akin to it but a little different, or just not at all?
It's... Well, first off, addressing the underdog thing, it was really interesting to me when all the hubbub was brought up about the underdog thing, and then Blizzard moved the underdog mechanics from a really obviously visible tick on the experience bar. They moved those mechanics to making other underdog bonuses that are more hidden, so it's not as obvious. For example, killing enemies lower level than you is dramatically less experience than before that patch, and their death timers are also shorter. So they moved the underdog bonus away from the obvious thing in order to stop people complaining, but it's still very much there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the fact that the core is so much harder to kill and pretty much unkillable now with the way heroes scale, like level 12, um, so like around minutes, I would say 10 to 15 is where you notice the core change the most, where it's pretty much like you can have all 5 people fight on their core and like not kill the shield, honestly, despite being way ahead. You can like kill their whole team, attack the core with all 5 people, and they'll all revive, and you've got the core to like 93% because the shield was so huge. So I understand why they made the change to prevent the level 10 global ultimate teams from ending the game. I'm guessing that like 90% likelihood that's why they made the change to the core, because that's the strategy it affects most directly. But the side effect of having a team that's ahead unable to kill the core, no matter what they try, basically, unless the other team makes huge mistakes, before 15 minutes, is kind of a mistake in my opinion.
Okay. So I guess 2 follow-up questions. You can pick either one. It'll be a choose your own adventure game. Does this mean that we are now opening up different strategies and possibilities for heroes, like I said, with Hammer, or even in some scenarios, Robo Goblin, Mr. Gazlo over there? Or should Blizzard have taken a better approach to the backdoor stuff? And this is the second question.
I just want to point
Should
out.
Blizzard
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
should Blizzard have taken a different approach to kind of like a backdoor protection type thing, where the core gets stronger when you run in, but not necessarily just as a baseline?
So you really tickled Dunk's brain there, because he did the triple blink like, Gazlo, what are you trying to get at here? That amused me, so that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I'll actually address both. So the first question the first question is actually 2 kind of different questions. One, you're kind of asking, by changing this core so that it's easier for all teams, let's say, to get to level 16. Like, even when you're a loser team, it's a lot easier to get to level 16, let's say, because it's harder for them to end the game. Does that allow different heroes to be used? And my answer would be yes. If heroes existed that I felt like their power curves were such that late game they're very, very good relative to other heroes in the game. Something you had in League and Dota, where obviously the idea of carries, heroes whose power levels went up dramatically near the end of the game. I don't feel like you have those so much in Heroes, obviously because there are fewer multiplicative stats, and the talent system kind of mitigates the way the item systems tended to be, really exponential when you multiply them together. So I don't really think there are the heroes that are just the super late game powerhouses that change would enable. And I think the change actually, specifically speaking to Robo Gazlo, I imagine the change hurts him more than anyone else because he can't kill the core like he could before, right? Early game at least. So that doesn't really apply. And as far as backdoor protection, I would have liked to see backdoor protection. I don't know how they specifically would have implemented it, but I think backdoor protection is something that is going to end up in the game eventually, and fighting against it is kind of just holding the wrong side of the fence. Like, Dota didn't have backdoor protection for a long time, and eventually even they gave in because, like, Rat Dota is just too miserable to play against, and just having people, like, run in and kill your base and, they don't have to push the lane, it just circumvents one of the fundamental ways you're meant to play the game. And I think eventually it's going to get taken out of the game, regardless of how they feel about it right now. They're just not going to see that until more high-level teams get in and start abusing that, like SMG has shown that you can do right now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask a big question. So Jake, if you want to say anything, then this is your time.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of theory craft with you here live on stream, and that's always a good time. So for backdoor protection, this is something that I think I actually probably pitched to you a while ago. We have forts and we have keeps, which are both now called town halls, I believe. And we have those in the game, right? So What if we had the core have basically a stacking buff on it, that at the beginning of the game, it had, say we're on Curse Hollow, right? It has a 6-stack buff on it, meaning that for every keep and fort you have up, each one provides a buff. And as you kill those, the core gets weaker and weaker as you go along. So basically what this does is it theoretically allows you to push down a lane, and if you're super far ahead, you still can, take the game if you're that far ahead. But if you're looking for that extra edge. Not only do you get rewarded for taking down a keep or a fort, you also get the experience bonus, and now you're making the end objective a little bit weaker so that you kind of go in phases to get there. Would that be something that kind of makes sense in the current heroes that we're seeing, or is that just not even possibly applicable? And I know it's a very broad and weird question, but for the
Yeah.
topic of discussion.
Yeah. So, disclaimer: anytime you do theory crafting like this, you don't actually
Awful.
know how it would change the game.
It's an awful
Uh,
idea. You never do theory crafting or
yeah.
map on stream, but we're doing
But
it anyways.
this concept is something I've thought about as well before. Heroes is actually kind of interesting, and it's different from the other games in the genre because it almost before the core change, it almost felt like you were playing. This is gonna seem weird, but like it's almost analogous to like a traditional Street Fighter like fighting game where the amount of buildings left in your weakest lane leading up to your core is almost like a health bar. And like the levels are only relevant, like they give you slight edges in fight, but you're actually winning or losing the game based on like how far it is from your weakest lane to the core. Um, if you can think about it like in the sense of how fast you can base race. So in that sense, changing it would really help take away from those strategies where it's literally like both teams race along opposite lanes or like take their map objectives to opposite lanes every time and just, whichever team kills one lane first wins and the other four forts for each team are just left up on the map and nobody cares because they don't do anything. So I think that's actually an interesting concept. I don't know if it would solve the problems that we're talking about here, but it's definitely something you could try. Couldn't be that hard to implement and throw it around. It's definitely the kind of thing that I think the game needs is something like that. Or maybe protection on the keeps rather than on the core based on forts remaining. Something like that, I just think. But that's an interesting concept.
Okay. So there you have it. Dunktrain approves, and it should immediately get implemented into the game. Glad that that's how we arrived to that.
That's how balance works.
Yep, that's how it works.
I wish.
I know, right? Just, done. Do it. Put it in the game. Don't even code. Just put it in.
Yeah.
What else? What else we got?
So there's a lot of other like small changes. We could talk about a little bit some map dependent stuff. Like, I mean, obviously we could talk about how they're called siege camps and bruiser camps now. That's irrelevant. But on the bottom of Dragonshire, we no longer have the triple sieger push. There is now a knight camp in the bottom center. Any thoughts on that? Does this really? You think this is a good change? You think it helps get rid of the triple giant push, or is the knights stronger, weaker?
I don't know. It's interesting. It's hard to tell what it's actually changed about the map fundamentally. Like, it doesn't bother me in any way. I didn't feel like the 6C giant push was overwhelming. So if that was why they did it, cool, but I didn't see a problem there. If they feel like the knights are, honestly, looking at the map, it literally just feels like that was a aesthetic decision, and I'm okay with that too. I don't think it fundamentally alters the game, really.
Beyond that, we've had some other changes to maps, specifically in the mines. They have a little bit more health. The grave golem hits like a truck now. Like, it said they nerfed him, but in the patch notes. But I'll be honest, I saw some people get stomped like 60% of their health. Like Illidan, you get hit with that stomp, goodbye. Like, it's
All right, so for clarification, which you talking about the
Haunted Mines.
summoned grave golem?
Yes, on
Okay.
Haunted Mines.
The summoned one.
So if you have like a
And-
63 skull
okay.
golem or something, and you're Illidan at like the 10-minute mark, it's like 60% of your health from a stomp. Like, it's
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're Illidan, you shouldn't really be getting hit by it, but it's okay.
well, some people make misplays here and there, and it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But I did see it happen, and I was just like, that's stronger than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the slam change was intentional. It wasn't in the patch notes, which leads me to believe that it's either somebody fixed something that wasn't working before, and now it works like it should have been the whole time, but it looks really weird to us because we haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
The written changes as is, I don't think they've impacted the map that heavily. They've changed a lot of breakpoints where heroes who could clear really easily before, with like one AoE and one auto attack, let's say, those heroes, they now can't hit that breakpoint. Maybe it takes an extra like one auto per minion or maybe even two, so it gets a little weird. It makes the mines take quite a bit longer, but I don't think it fundamentally changes the map. I mean, Yeah.
Overall, do you think it's better for the mines though, so you can't just split up and clear the mines instantly, or do you think it's kind of worse?
I'm. I don't think honestly that there have been enough competitive games in the
That's
history
fair.
of Heroes played on this patch of the mines to like know whether that strategy was oppressive or even optimal. So it's hard for me to say that the change was needed or not needed because that map is so fundamentally different from the rest in the pool that it seems nonsensical to play it competitively. So balancing it is really irrelevant. And like as soon as they realize that it shouldn't be in the pool.
Okay. So, have your opinions of the maps changed at all this patch, or is it still the same order as before?
Um, if I knew what the order was before, I could tell you, but
Well,
I don't think the maps have fundamentally changed this patch. There's like some cursory
Okay.
changes that
Yeah.
don't really affect anything, honestly. So
What about the
It's
tribute
cool.
change? It's kind of a big
tribute
deal.
changed to 6 seconds from 7.
Yeah, it's kind
Is
of
that
a
what you're
big
talking
deal.
about?
It doesn't feel
Yeah.
that different though.
It is when the fights are drawn out.
It's interesting. I don't.
Okay, that's a good
know if it-
analysis.
I
it's
like it.
definitely interesting. It changes the feel a little bit. I'll
Yeah.
give it that, but I don't.
I think it helps. I mean, in my opinion, I think it helps the early game more than anything because the early game, you could have that tribute fight where you respawn twice, you die twice, and you're still in the fight.
Yeah.
But this kind of, I haven't really had that as much.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I've seen small differences. It makes it a little easier to ninja, which is like cute, but I don't
That's
know.
cute, I
if
guess.
it
It's
really
cute.
changed.
1 second. Don't care. Move on.
I
Next
mean-
topic.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's like
No,
1
that's fair,
second
that's
on
fair.
the channel time.
Well, I think that pretty much covers the maps. We still don't
Yeah.
have Sky Temple, which is, I think their way of saying they're not done with it yet. They're not satisfied with it.
They said it was coming in beta, not this
Oh, did they?
patch.
They said it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I retract that then.
But I mean, even then, it still didn't really feel 100% finished at BlizzCon. So
It was fun.
it felt really good. It felt fun to play, but it still felt a little bit too chaotic.
It felt
for-
too strong, honestly.
Mm.
But we were playing against pubs, so that have never played the game, so that might be why. So maps are good. Heroes are good. You said Lily's looking better. You said Murden, he's kind of banned out right now. Any other heroes that feel better? Like Illidan got a little bit of a boost. Anyone else on your radar?
I
Nope.
Not really. Like
Okay.
honestly, the patch changed less. Okay, there were a lot fewer nerfs handed out than I
Yeah.
thought there needed to be, and fewer.
Yo,
buffs.
Arthas got
Like,
nerfed? Like 2 mana,
Arthas-
bro?
Oh
Oh.
yeah, I forgot to mention Arthas is literally unplayable now. You shouldn't
Oh.
even pick him. I mean, if you,
Just
even if
leave
you
it
have
for us.
Master Skin
Just,
Arthas,
don't,
you should
just
just
let us get it.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Okay,
yeah,
so
Arthas
you
Tychus,
yeah.
Arthas Tychus being untouched was pretty much a
Well-
giant question mark, and like
On that
Yeah.
note, lots of little changes. You think this is their kind of? I mean, it's kind of like their final. Let's do a few little things, and then you think we're gonna have a huge patch for beta because beta is less than a month away, or no, just over a month away. Just over a month away, we'll have beta. You think that this is kind of their final patch in the alpha, kind of just throwing out the feelers to see what the community reacts. Oh my god, I can't believe they didn't nerf this, or oh my god, I can't believe they did nerf this.
I don't know. From my perspective, if I was doing the last patch of Technical Alpha, I'd probably just go ham, changing things, and then like it's Technical Alpha. It's the end of Technical Alpha. Nobody cares. It's about to go into beta. You can revert anything that was really messed up when you go into the beta patch. So I'd be really surprised if they made really radical changes moving into beta, just because it makes a lot more sense to put that stuff out now in this patch, and then you can change it and be like, oh, it was alpha. We were just testing something. Like rather than as soon as all these new people get in for beta, if you really mess something up, then like that patch is where it's going to matter. So I don't actually expect to see really, really huge changes in that patch.
We will find
Well,
out.
We're going to see Thrall, so that's a pretty big change in general, but that's not what we're talking about. So that's going to be a thing, and definitely would like to have a lot of people talk about him because he's going to change the game a lot.
Yep.
But there's one pretty massive thing that people aren't overlooking, but they're also not like blowing up to the extent that I thought they would. and that is the turn speed changes and everything that went into the game,
Yeah.
and
I'm
it's
glad you brought it up.
really awesome. So,
Yeah.
starting this conversation, and you can take it wherever you want after you answer this question, which is really short. Diablo feels better now? Question mark. Is that I know you're not really a big Dibbles player, but
I was when
he
he was
actually,
good.
yeah. So he's actually able to like navigate around and body block people now.
Yeah.
So do you think we'll see him more this weekend or anytime in the near future, or is he still just not good enough? And how has the movement speed change stuff affected the rest of the game for you?
I don't think you'll see our team playing Diablo.
Okay, so definitely 100% pick every game. Got
it. The turn speed changes actually were fantastic for the health of the game, in my opinion. There were heroes before who their turn speeds were just so abysmal that it actually really negatively impacted the way they played, and you could really tell the difference when you played a hero that had a good turn speed. For example, some heroes couldn't do the spinny thing on their mount before, and like it's really game breaking that certain heroes were so disadvantaged that they couldn't spin in place. So I'm really glad they fixed that. But in all seriousness, actually the turn speed being kind of normalized and not having any people who are so difficult to maneuver has had really meaningful impacts that I think people aren't talking about yet, because on average your player base is not die-hard Dota fans who would literally murder someone if their hero had 1 less movement speed and 2 less turn radius speed. Like, if you put in the patch notes for Dota that like someone's favorite hero got 5 less degrees per second turn speed, like they would literally come out in pitchforks and try to murder your family because that community has been around for so long that like the impact of range and a tiny bit of movement speed and like a tiny bit of turn speed, like all of that stuff, the community's been around so long that those are the things that matter to them because they're at that point. And this community just hasn't matured enough to understand the importance of those values yet. So you're not seeing it be talked about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'll say though, the barrel feels so good now with the turn speed changes. The barrel. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a common pick because of how good Panda Pals is, but it was horrendous before, and it's actually really fun now.
Right. I don't play with bad ultimates, but I'm glad that you have fun.
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to ask, and I just forgot it. No, I'm a bad interviewer.
Turn speed, Dota. What else were we talking about?
No. It was like semi-related. It's gone. It's gone forever.
It's gone.
I'm sorry, team. I let you down. That's it. I got outplayed.
You got outplayed. Well, any final thoughts, Matt? I mean, we covered maps, we covered heroes, we covered what's coming, and we covered Jaina.
I would do final thoughts if I could remember them. There is one thing. In the AMA, the devs talked about reworking certain heroes. And they've been saying that Aperthur's getting a second ult.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
they
question
keep
for
talking about it, but they're not sure how they want to do it. And we don't even have to talk about that. The one I actually want to talk about is Raynor. They said specifically that they're looking to redesign Raynor
I didn't see
very
that,
soon.
actually.
Yeah, very soon. In that they feel he should be redesigned because he's the first thing you see. Like for new players coming into Heroes, it's Raynor or bust basically, because not many people know how to break out of the tutorial as is. So, what do you think? What do you think Raynor should change to? Do you think he needs to change? Is he relevant enough right now that it's okay, or is he literally just not worth playing unless it's in a very specific composition right now?
Well, it's weird. You have to make sure not to conflate the issues of a character's current balance situation to the actual design of the kit. For example, I would say that Raynor is a relatively, not necessarily bad, but very simple design. Okay, I'll just say it bad. He's a bad design, I would say, straight up. And that doesn't mean that he can't be good. There are heroes in Dota who have what I would say very bad designs, but you could make that hero brokenly overpowered if you just change some numbers, right? So balance is always independent of design for the most part, although you can have some designs that are fundamentally unbalanceable, a la Irelia from League of Legends. So I think you have to kind of separate those. Do I think Raynor should be reworked? Absolutely. But that's not a statement about his current balance.
Okay.
I look at those differently.
So give him real stim, make him a real Marine. Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
He's a huge flavor fail. He's a huge flavor fail.
he
right
doesn't
now.
feel like Raynor. Yeah.
He doesn't have stim pack. He doesn't like he doesn't
Oh, man.
feel like a Raynor. He doesn't do anything that strikes me as like a Marine. Like, God, Inspire is the most boring.
It's
of-
awful. Yeah, if he had stim and combat shields and like you
Yeah.
could play him like a Marine, like one of his heroics should be Manor Mule, where he drops a mule, like a bomb with a mule on it. Like it should actually be called Manor Mule. Like that would be the sickest heroic to get, where it's just like kind of like a nuke, but
But it's a Manor Mule.
it's a Manor Mule. Like I've said this before. Why
Yeah.
why is that not a spell? Like yeah, you can Manor Mule, but why not
I don't
have that?
necessarily
be a
agree
real
with
thing?
that, but I do think he needs a
Damn
rework.
it.
And
I
he's
tried.
Right now, he's kind of a flavor and thematic failure, and like his gameplay is not that interesting. So
Well, Dunk, I know you have some scrims to attend to very soon, so we will let you do your shout-outs.
oh, my shoutouts.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
All right, cool. We're done. Moving on.
Yeah, no. Okay, so let me open up my Twitter real quick. Shoutouts to Cloud9, sponsored by HyperX, Logitech, Alienware, Kingwin, Need for Seat, and Homejoy and Wallclass.com. I think I'm obligated to shout those out, so
Good job.
got those done out of the way, boys.
I've learned this from, I mean, using your Twitter, that was smart, but I've learned this from, watching StarCraft for years, and what all the guys would do is they'd have a Post-it note with all their sponsors written on it, so anytime they had a question, they're just like, of course, it's Cooler Master, whoever, so...
Yeah. No, huge respect though, and thanks to the Cloud9 guys, and much love for my team, for the guys who came with me, for sticking with me through the change, and then shout out to Zuna and Ken for like just being generally chill, awesome dudes to play with, and looking forward to playing with them for the future.
Very cool. And of course, you can find him at twitch.tv/Dunktrain and twitter.com/Dunktrain.
Yeah, those are important too, I think. I also have a Facebook fan page. You want to shout that out for me too, Jake?
I assume it's facebook.com/Dunktrain.
Yeah, you got
It's
it.
not actually true. It's Dunk Facet. All right, so I'm Steve, signing off here. I'm taking over the shoutouts. Shoutouts to everybody that signed up for either of my two events this weekend, ESL and Kings of the Storm. Kings is going to have three pairs
pairs,
casting. Yeah, so check that out. Just come here and look at the right Twitch page. So here's the Storm and find it. But it'll be Jake will be streaming, Kevin Naki will be streaming, and I believe Xander the Gamer will be streaming. So check those out. That's 3 p.m. EST tomorrow. But I believe last time I checked was this morning. We had 12 teams signed up. I should really check that again. But it's a strong bracket. So pretty much all of the big NA teams are coming out to represent.
Cloud9 is playing.
Yes, Cloud9 will be there.
They are?
They'll be making their debut. Dunk will possibly wake up in time, but not sure. So we might need a sub. So
I assure you.
yeah, and that's. I mean, there's a ton of other people I can shout out. Because everyone always never shouts out their managers. Shout outs to Julian. And
Yeah.
just gonna put that out there. So thank you for helping us, helping me get in touch with all the C9 guys, because that's awesome, and taking stress off of them. And shout outs to, I guess, SMG, because they're my homeboys, and I got their shirt behind me. So
Wow. Oh,
That's
the
it.
callouts. The callouts. Jake needs more beard, says the chat. Well, I just shaved because I gotta let their beard shine. I don't wanna put them in the shadows. No, their beards are too majestic for me. I didn't want to be overshadowed by them. But guys, yeah, just twitch.tv/solidjakegg. If you're watching it here, great. If you're watching the VOD, follow me there. Alternatively, if you guys don't follow my YouTube, all the VODs from every tournament I cast, everything is over on that YouTube. So tournaments, Town Hall, Clairvoyance, you name it, and just random stuff as well. That's there. And twitter.com/solidjakegg. Consistent, just like Dunktrain. Look at that. Same thing on every single website. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to Kings of the Storm tomorrow, Saturday, December 6th. It's going to be a great event. Like you said, we have Xander, me, and Naki. Was Naki's the third stream, or is it Jester? We don't know.
that sounds right. No, that sounds right. It's Naki
It's
Jester
Naki-
and Xander and Shane.
So it's Naki's channel. So yeah, this channel here, 3 p.m. Eastern. Kubi and I will be casting. It's going to be a great time. We haven't casted in a few weeks. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this new patch. We're going to let Dunk go do his scrims. Dunk, thanks again for coming on. And we'll see you another time. I'm excited to see you play, and everyone that tuned in, thanks. Till next time.
Rolling out.
Rolling out. Wrong scene.
Legend.
Base gods.